everybody. This is a preamble, if you like, to the Enchantment study group. I thought I'd give you a bit of a taste of what is in store so that it will whet your appetites, give you an idea of what you're letting yourself in for, and hopefully get you excited about it like I am. Now, we're looking at between 7 and 10 months to run this project. It is a little uncertain because I'm not sure all the sections I want to cover are going to be coverable in one meeting. So I'm allowing for a bit of flexibility there, just in case. Now, I'm going to go through, most of you have probably had a look at the document on the Enchantment study group, secret group on Facebook, but for those that haven't, I thought I'd go over what we're planning on covering to give you an idea and give you a little bit of background as well. Obviously we'll be covering this in depth in the first class, so for those of you local, that is less than a week away now, next Wednesday on the 18th, and for those of you who are further afield, you should be having your first meeting a week or so after that, so there's time for the DVD to get to you, so that you can see all the strange things we get up to in Los Angeles, just in case you were wondering. So we'll be starting off in the first class, doing an introduction, talking about the prerequisites, what you need to be able to make use of this. Introduction is going to explain how I came upon Enchantment. I'll give you the short story now, but I'll give you more detail. When I was training in Alexandrian Wicker under Nigel Bourne and Selby Bate back in London in the early 80s, Nigel was very fond of taking us to the pub and making us try and use energy manipulation to get the barman's attention so that we could get our beers before other people who'd been waiting longer than us. Amazing how much of an incentive beer can be, really. It's very, very, very useful. And we'll be looking at manipulative magic in myth and fiction. Technically speaking, any form of magic is manipulation of one form or another. It's just what you're manipulating and what you're hoping to get out of it that's different. And we'll be looking at the ethics of manipulation, which is very important. Those of you who are familiar with my writings, my podcasts and my workshops know that my position is that we, as crafters, are responsible for taking an ethical stance and looking at everything we do and weighing it as to whether it's worth the coin we're going to pay. And we're going to have a look at the concept of magic stripped of dogma and ritual, which is basically what the Enchantment study group is about. We're looking at the raw technique. We're not looking at sort of prose and poetry. We're not looking at ritual structures. We're looking at pure practical techniques. And we'll be looking at why I'm writing this book, why we're doing this study group, what has driven me to come up with this zany idea in the first place. Prerequisites. We'll talk a bit about visceral magic. Those of you who've read my book or taken my workshop on that will know what I mean by that, but it's basically the idea of getting viscerally connected to your magical path, feeling it in your gut, feeling it in your heart, and you can do that through the exercises in my book or through any other practice that takes you to a very emotive place. It's not, you don't have to buy my book, obviously I'd like you to, but you don't have to. We're talking about trance states. One of the prerequisites is to be able to get into a trance state. It's actually a lot easier than a lot of people think. We'll be looking at various techniques for doing that in the first class. And we'll be looking at focus and will and exercises to develop and strengthen them, because they're also very important, and visualization too. And above all, confidence. You're never going to convince anyone else that you're a fairy unless you're confident that you can do it. So it's, okay, a bit flippant there, but I think you know what I'm talking about. You need to be able to have the confidence to believe that you can actually do what it is you're trying to do. And there are ways of boosting your confidence, and one of those is getting successful results in the workshops. So we'll do our best to help you with that. Working on yourself, we'll be learning, as I said, trance techniques. We'll be learning focus and visualization techniques, and we'll be learning projection techniques and how to use this stuff to bring about change in yourself. To borrow an idea from the Bible, don't can offer to take a speck out of someone else's eye when you've got a log in your own. Start off by changing you and then change the rest of the universe. It works better that way generally. Otherwise you change the rest of the universe and then you change you and suddenly you realise you don't like the way the universe is and you have to redo it all over again. It's a terrible waste. Then we're going to be moving on in the next classes to the various direct actual techniques. First of all, working on people and things remotely, because it's easier, believe it or not, than working on people up in your face. We'll be looking at The Secret. Remember that DVD and book that came out a couple of years ago that everyone was getting crazy about and Oprah was pimping up and down one side, up one side and down the other. We'll be looking at that and what that says, and we'll be looking at what I like to call the real secret. In other words, the bit that's missing from that popular item. We'll be looking at 1-point concentration, how to use that quartz crystal I keep telling everyone you need to have. And we'll be looking at altering reality, just a small subject. Then we'll go on in the next class to direct manipulation through touch, voluntary trance-inducing touch techniques. And so I'll teach you how to put somebody into a trance without saying anything or doing anything other than the way you touch them. And no, dirty minds, not like that, although that can work. But we won't be teaching that one, not on camera anyway. Involuntary trance-inducing touch techniques, in other words, once you've got the hang of doing it to a willing victim, you need to be able to do it to an unwilling victim who's trying not to be trans. And learning how to project energy and imagery through touch. In other words, it's a touchy-feely class. And then we're going to look at doing manipulation through gesture, and that'll probably be on the next class after that. Looking at magnetic passes, inducing trance through passes, the Jedi mind trick type thing, manipulating energy through passes, and the art of what I like to call the art of the puppet master. Getting people to do what you want, but thinking it's their own idea. Very much Jedi mind tricks. Then, in the next one, moving on to direct manipulation through gaze. Gestures are a little dramatic and obvious sometimes, so you don't really want to use them all the time. Sometimes you want to be subtle, and the best way to do that is through the gaze. So everything you can do with the hands and with the touch, you can do with the eyes. So we'll be looking at the power of the gaze, we'll be looking at the evil eye. And manipulating trance-inducing through eye contact, in other words, all the good stuff, juicy stuff. Using gaze on someone who's not looking at you. This goes right back to that very first experience, getting the barman's attention at the pub after coming night, back in the 80s. And gazing from afar, how to gaze on somebody when you're not actually physically where they are. Which takes us back to the remote thing at the beginning, but it's a modification, it's an interesting sort of twist on it. So, then the next one is using the spoken word. We'll be looking at the power of words and embedding commands in conversation. Now, I want to stress, I'm not going to be teaching NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I know a lot of people do use that. It's taught as sales techniques by a lot of companies, and I hate it. I mean, the basic idea, the psychology of it's sound, but it's not magic, it's psychology. And it really is, there are easier ways of doing it. Once you've got the other exercises under your belt, you can switch to using spoken word. And the main advantage of spoken word over gaze, and probably the most popular reason for using the spoken word rather than gaze, is that you can directly manipulate groups or crowds. Think Adolf Hitler at the Nuremberg rallies. Think Antony at the death of Caesar in the Shakespeare play. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your trousers, or whatever it was he said. Part of that is psychology, but there's a magical aspect to it, and that's what we'll be looking at. And then we come to glamour. Creating illusions, persuasion, evoking desire and creating trust. This is really the heart of it, but we can't do that before we've gone through all the other steps. And then we're going to look at protecting yourself, how to stop other people from putting a glamour on you. Notice I teach that at the end of the series, because if I taught you at the beginning, then you'd never get to learn the rest because you'd all be protecting yourselves. Ha ha, I'm crafty. We'll be talking about patron deities and guardian spirits, and this is the only religious, cultural aspect of it when we talk about having connections to guardian spirits and patron deities as a way of protecting yourself against the influence of others. And in conclusion, we'll be looking at the ethical uses of manipulation, healing and therapy, creating opportunities for yourself and those around you, accelerated learning, and cursing and harmful manipulation, because I may not be encouraging you to do it, but you need to know about it so you can prevent it when you encounter it. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. The videos that we film here at my home are not going to be like this. You won't have the pretty background. I see a green screen right now in the camera, but by the time you see it, it'll have something pretty behind me, because I like playing with my toys. But we'll be filming in my living room. I won't have a green screen up, and it'll be me and my living room and a bunch of people participating that you'll see. So it'll be fun though. And I do want to stress one very important thing, and I'll be stressing this pretty much every week, every month, that this is not instant magic. We're not going to show you a technique that you're instantly going to get the hang of and instantly be able to use. We're going to be showing you exercises that you will use to develop an ability. It's a bit like weight training. You have to work up to it, and you have to persevere. And so there is a level of commitment to this. I hope everybody has got the message that in order to get something out of this, you really need to see it through from start to finish, because it's an ongoing thing and it builds. It's not like, one week you're learning on how to use touch, the next week you're learning how to use gesture, the next week you're learning how to use gaze. It's not three separate things, they build on each other. You need to have the previous techniques down to be able to use the new technique, and you don't stop practicing the old technique, you keep on developing it so that you keep your repertoire building. So it's it's a bit like learning to play the piano. You don't stop doing chopsticks because you've learnt Rachmaninoff's Suite in F demented. You do chopsticks as well because you want to keep yourself familiar with the basics as well as the more advanced stuff. And they all build on each other, and they're all exercises designed to be repeated over and over and over again. And the more you do them, the better you get at them. And on that subject, this isn't a race. It's not how quickly you can become competent at these things. Some people are going to take to it like a duck to water. Some people aren't going to seem like they're getting anywhere for a while. That doesn't mean that the duck to water people are going to be better at it. It just means that you need to ramp up more slowly. And you may find that the late bloomers get better at it than the ones who had a rapport with it right from the beginning, because the momentum builds. And I think it's fairly safe to say that most of you will find yourselves going, I think the pace that I'm planning on doing this should be about the right pace for most people. Some of you will find that it comes a little slower. Don't worry about that. As I said, you do it in your own pace, and as you develop the abilities, you'll find that it's worth the wait. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That really is it. You really I do want to stress that you really do want to take notes on this, whether you do it on your iPhone or Android or whatever, or you do it on paper with a pen, old school, or scratch it on a rock with a pointy stick. Whatever works for you, but you're going to want to journal it in some way. You're going to want to make notes of what we're discussing, and you are going to want to make notes on your results when you try things, so that when you find something, because there are variations, and sometimes you'll find one variation works for you better than others, and you want to have a record of that, so that you can come back to it and relate to it and use that to give you ideas for further variations as you go along. It's, I have to be honest, I'm a very bad note taker myself, but there are some areas where it has to be done, and this is probably one of them. Those of you who are going to be in the remote classes around the world, you will have the DVDs, which you can obviously play back as often as you want, and I will have copies available for the local folks as well. I may not give them to you up front, because obviously my primary focus will be getting the ones out the door for the remote groups, but you can probably a week or so later pick up a copy of the DVD if you really want to. And obviously the book is going to be very interesting at the end of this. It's going to be, I'm hoping to at least have a little bit of collaboration from all of you. I want the book is obviously my baby, but I want to be able to incorporate the results you guys get, and so I want to be able to share some of your experiences with the people who buy the book as well. So in a sense, we're all doing this book together, which is kind of cool. And I think you will all find that this is stuff that you can take away to other groups that you work with and share it with them. And I'm hoping that this will help to revise some of the more exciting aspects of magic. There's too many people these days talking about magic as being just psychology. And yes, there is a psychological aspect to it, but there's a lot of real magic out there that's being ignored by people. And I really want to wake people up to that. So that's partly what this is all about. So I hope this has whetted your appetite, and I hope that you will enjoy the study group. I know I'm going to. Thanks for listening.